Ask the Author, a show about inspiring stories and conversations by creatives and all forms of art, music, movies, visual art, authors, creative writing, poetry, dance, culinary art, among others. Brought to you by the multi-award-winning author, life coach, and poet, Richard Mwebesa.
Our viewers, welcome back to Ask the Author. It's 2025, January. It's our first segment of the year. On set today, I have a very interesting person, a multi-talented, creative. He's a movie actor. He is a script writer. He is a movie producer. He is also a person that does directing of film and is into the performing arts and space. Welcome again, as I mentioned, Ask the Author podcast. We value you. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please give us comments and give us feedback. Tell us any person within the creative space that you want to get on the show so that we look for them and bring them on the show. It's been a privilege working with you from last year when the podcast started in November 2024, and this is now 2025. With me on set is Bonney Olot Olem. Welcome, Bonney.
Thank you.
Glad to have you on set.
Thank you, Richard.
And welcome to Ask the Author.
Thank you very much.
Bonney, first things first, I am seeing a new look. You know, you movie actors and movie film stars always do profiling yourselves and ensuring you within character. I'm seeing a new look. I'm seeing a bit of hair around you. I'm seeing a mustache, a goatee. Yes, and I'm seeing you looking like a Batman. So is this look preparing for a new movie that you're working on? You look a bit different.
That is, are you being prophetic? Or?
No, I'm just asking because
Yes, sure.
I'm seeing the look has changed, and I know in your space there's no coincidences or things just don't happen.
That's true.
Yes. But before we go there, who are you, sir? Who are you? Tell us. Who is Bonney?
Wow.
Olot Olem.
It's a privilege to be here, and I'm very delighted to answer that question. My name is Olot Bonney Olem, and like Ricky has said, I'm an actor, a filmmaker, and acting is my major specialty. I do directing, I do script writing, I do production management. I act for film, for radio dramas. I did theater some time back, but now that's in the past. And I'm a husband to one female wife, and a proud father of one son.
First show us the ring. No people want to see evidence. What you?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's who I am anyway. Yeah.
Interesting, Bonney. So, as an actor,
Like you've asked, I think I was naturally born for this because I was told stories of when I was a little child before I even went to school that I used to sing. I had made an instrument, like you get a stick and make a bow out of it, then tie a string to it, and I would lean it against a calabash or a basin. Back in the day, there used to be basins made of steel, like metallic basins. So basing on the kind of sound I wanted to get, I would lean that bow against it and play and sing as I play that instrument. So my relatives always struggled to go with me to different events. That was back in the village, because I was born in my village. I was born in a facility called St. John Paul Atapara in Oyam district. And most of my childhood was there, while my parents were in the city, in Jinja. My father was a soldier. But much of my early childhood, I was into performance. So my relatives would struggle to go with me at burial functions, at wedding functions, because wherever people were gathered, to me it was an opportunity to display my talent. And I would sing and dance and excite people, and people would give me money. Being a child, I didn't need that money. So whoever went with me would come back with the money.
Okay. So can you then say that as a child, your art and your craft was more of expression, yeah, authentic, natural expression,
Yes.
which was not scripted, which was not instructed,
Yes.
which was not directed, which was not driven.
Yes.
But you just expressing yourself as an artist with authentic thoughts and feelings
yes.
or emotion. Okay.
Because I was told I know that for a fact. I used to imitate people a lot. When I looked at people's faces and I found them dramatic, then I would find myself expressing how the person looks, how the person talks, and making people laugh out of it.
Okay.
But that was innocently entertaining people without any intent to do it. It was just a natural thing, and yet people related with it and found it funny. They found it entertaining. And so that was it. And the first time I made an impact as an actor, back, I think after losing my father, I lost my father when I was 10. I was in Jinjame boarding primary school. Then we moved to my village, a school called Adele Primary School in Oyam district still, Minakulu sub-county. So my uncle then was a primary teacher. So he wrote a play about HIV. Remember back in the day, HIV was so prevalent.
Yes.
So everything was being done to create awareness. So I was casted to act as this rich man who had 2 wives and he used to sleep around. And
how old were you? Still 10?
Yes, 10.
Okay.
But at the end of the play, almost everyone in the audience was crying, like, because it looked so real, including my grandmother who went with me. She was crying. So it didn't make that much sense to me until recently. There's a film we did. It's called Amitam. It's still under production. At one point, the people in the cast were crying because of what I was portraying in the film.
Okay.
And then when they said cut, I laughed at them and they were like, how do you make us cry? Yet we can see that
you're acting.
You're acting.
Yeah, I think art and acting in this case has the power to move emotion, to move hearts. Yeah, because as a creative, as you're moving, as you're on that stage, or you're on the camera, the silver screen, and you're putting together your artistry and you bring out the craft, you're able to touch hearts and move people and move them, their emotions, and move their thinking and draw them within your story as a storyteller. So I think acting is one of the most profound and strongest art forms. I believe poetry is one. Of course, you know I'm a poet. It was one, but acting has that power. So how then did you cope up? But sorry about the loss of your dad. Losing your dad when you're still a very young man and a child. So how then did you cope up with that life after your dad had passed?
Fortunately, when my dad passed, I had an uncle who was a pharmacist here in Kampala.
The uncle was a brother of your father?
No, a brother to my mom.
Your mom?
Yes. First of all, in African settings, this is a common thing that when a man dies, the family tends not to treat the widow well.
Yes.
So there was there was much mistreatment of my mom. So she moved back with me and my siblings to her ancestral home. And my mom was not literate, but she was a very sharp woman. She gave us the best life anyone would desire. Like, we lived as if we were children of the most accomplished people. We never lacked anything. And she had friends who were people in good places, like the RDC, the main, like big people in the area. I don't know how, but she had that ability to draw people in her space. And it is something I believe I tapped into, because when I look around at my kind of acquaintances, I always wonder how I landed myself into certain spaces. But it's a certain kind of favor that I think only God gives.
It's also a gift, a craft, an art, or a skill, you would say it, of relationships. Because I always say relationships are currencies. Yes, you cannot do much and go far if you are not in the right spaces and in the right relationships. So relationships can help you achieve quite a lot, because you cannot do it alone. It is Isaac Newton who said, the inventor, of course, of the laws of motion and discoverer of gravity, who said that if at all I've seen far, it's because I've stood on the shoulders of giants. So in order for you to be anything or anybody, you must have friends. Even Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, and I believe your Lord and Savior as well, also had relationships. Yes, I always tell people, he had relationships with Joseph of Arimathea. He also had a relationship with Nicodemus. Yes, that's why when he was crucified on the cross,
With
Joseph
Martha and the sister.
and the sisters, the other, Lazarus and many others, Joanna at the time, they're the ones who went and, of course, Joseph of Arimathea, Nicodemus, who asked the Roman officials for his body to be buried. And without burial, there would not have been a resurrection. And without resurrection, there would not have been salvation. So relationships matter. Anyway, carry on.
Yes.
I was tempted to preach.
It's well.
Yes, so carry on.
So my uncle brought me back after I studied in the village for close to 2 years, because my father died when I was in P4 first term. So second term up to P5 third term, I was in the village. So my uncle brought me back and returned me to Ginger Boarding Primary School. But during holidays, I would live with him. And once in a while, I would go back to my mom up country. So I was with my uncle for some time, but unfortunately, he also passed on after some time. And now, that's when I began to get certain responsibilities at a very early age. I became a child family head, because I had my siblings and my cousins, his children, and then also our other cousins that were under his care. So I found myself.
How old were you then at the time?
My uncle passed on when I was 17. Yes. And I had another uncle who was then at the university at MOBS. And he tried his best to take care of us, but the number was overwhelming. And it became too tough for him that he became an alcoholic. Sorry to say, I hope he is not offended by me mentioning this, but he struggled with alcoholism to the point that he was in a very miserable state. And I had to become the head of the house when he left us. But I thank God, he's right now very fine. He has a family, has a wife, he got his first child after his 40s, but he has also had his fair share of the harshness of this life. And he's doing really well, and I thank God for his life. And when he left, I had to make sure that each and every one of us continued going to school. We had food, rent was paid. When people were sick, their medical bills had to be met. And I thank God, because I had never had any permanent source of income. It was all about looking here and there.
Hustling, as they say.
Yes, I've done several kinds of jobs in Kampala. Actually, almost every corner of Kampala. When I reach, I always tell people, I remember I used to do something here. I remember I used to, almost every corner of Kampala, I've done a different kind of job. Yes, to make sure that we continue. And I thank God that we are all somewhere right now. We are all somewhere.
Wow.
Yes, we've got decent education. And we are
Bonney, your story is quite interesting. So how many were your siblings and yourself at the time when you took over the responsibility?
We used to be 8 people in the house. Yes, we were 8.
That time, where were you living? Still in his home in...
Now, my uncle used to rent a house in... when he passed on, we were around Chebando. And then when he passed on, my younger uncle had got a simple job at a pharmaceutical industry in Chireka. So we moved to Chireka. We were staying in a 2-roomed house, sitting room, bedroom, but we were 8 people.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. We used to call, like, this is a common thing. Most people have this experience of sleeping in the sitting room.
Yes, of course.
And Pastor Ugembe has a song about it, like Nasulanga Mudile, something like that.
No, but that's common here in
And
Kampala. Yes, you lay your mattress, then in The morning you remove the mattress, put it in the
Yes.
bedroom.
Yes.
Yeah, I've also experienced that.
We had
So it's not something so new anyway.
we
Yes.
nicknamed that BC. Ask where do you sleep? I sleep in BC.
BC.
Between chairs.
Between chairs. Sleeping between chairs.
Yeah.
So now tell me more about the responsibility. Because what I'm trying to see is because I believe you coming to film is not a coincidence. Yes, we know you were born with the gift of acting and performing arts. But then at 17 years old, how was your mind getting creative to feed 8 people, take them to school? How were you managing to do that, Bonney?
Normally, I look back and I say it's God, because there are times I would go 3 months without having rent, and my landlord then, Mr. Abdallah, wherever he is, I still, I always pray for everyone I've encountered in life, and everyone who has been kind to me a certain way, and Mr. Abdallah, wherever he is, I still find myself kneeling.
What is his other name?
I don't remember. Yes, but I always kneel down and mention him in my prayers, because he was too kind to us that sometimes I would go 3 months without paying rent.
Yeah.
And he comes, then when he asks, I tell him, Mzee, Chika. Then he would look and smile and say,
Bon, I know what you're saying. Let me tell you, one time, and true story, one time owed rent for 1.5 years.
Wow.
So I know what you're
That
saying.
is favor.
Yes, I know what you're saying. My landlord was very kind to me. Yes, of course, it was a home of brothers. Yes, who were so kind in Banda. Yes, at Chambogo. After my university, I said I won't go back home. I must get to the streets and work.
Wow.
Yes, of course, I appreciate him as well. Nicholas, Moses. These were the guys who were there for me as well. So I know what you're saying. Actually, we became friends.
Wow.
And I always appreciate them, because without that support, I would never have learned the lesson. So I can relate with your story. True story. I owed rent for 1.5 years.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
But
Anyway, carry on. It is your story, not my story.
it's
Yes.
Yes. So basically, Abdallah was good, but there are times he would say, "Neo Limbam, you mean you don't have any relatives at all?" Because if I were in your place, I would tell everyone to at least find an uncle and survive. Then I also go and survive. Actually, some friends of mine also told me that several times, because there are times, for example, they at one point, one of my cousins, Dan, right now, he's doing well. He works with civil aviation, and back then he was at campus. So he would come to ask for money every now and then when he needed it. And at one point, my colleagues were like, "Man, what do you brothers think you do? We are here hungry, like we are starving, we don't have what to eat, and then they are coming to you to ask for." I'm like, "But they are my responsibility, and I can't blame them." Like, people didn't understand it, but in my heart of hearts, I had always prayed. Actually, at one point when my uncle was struggling with alcohol, sometimes when he got drunk, he would say certain very hurtful words. And I knelt down and I said, "God, show me how best I can take care of these kids. I don't want my siblings and cousins to have regrets of not having parents in their lives. Show me how best I can go about this, that these people may have a life where they don't say, 'I wish mom was here, I wish dad was here.'" And indeed, God answered me, because after some time, when I became the family head, actually, God is so real. You who is watching me out there,
True.
very, very few people are blessed enough to hear the voice of God the way we can hear each other speak right now. But one of those who are privileged that God has allowed me to hear his voice. But the first time I heard the voice of God, I didn't know I'd heard God. When things got tough, I kept praying that, "God, show me how best I can take care of these kids." And after some time, life got too tough, that my prayer now became like a blame towards God. Every time I knelt down in tears, I would ask God, "God, why me? Why me?" And then one day I heard a voice tell me, "You told me you want to take care of your siblings and cousins. What you feel right now is the burden that comes with the responsibility you asked for. Why are you complaining? Believe me, up to right now, as I sit, nothing moves me. The spirit of fear and doubt is not in me because of that voice. Every time I'm faced with any form of challenge, I remember that voice so vividly that I tell myself, I actually talk to problems. When any problem comes, I find myself laughing and talking. I'm like, you think you can handle me? Do you know what I've been through? I have a voice I had that is with me, and he looks after me and makes sure things are right with me.
Amen to that.
You will not defeat me.
Wow.
So it took me a very long time when I now began to hear the voice of God more. When I pray and fast, I see things about people. I hear things. So it is then that I realize, oh, wait a minute. God talked to me and I didn't know he did.
He was the one.
And that is how we managed to go through life, that I managed to get school fees in ways I did not know. Because there are days I would wake up and there's no toothpaste in the house. And by the way, it's funny. Normally, that is the point when I know money is going, I'm going to get some money. Every time I press the tube and
there's no toothpaste,
there's nothing, I kneel down and I'm like, Father. Other people, when they lack, they go to their father and mother. As for me, I know you. These kids have to go to school, people have to eat. If we don't get these things, you're going to be ashamed. I don't know whether you want to bear this shame. And somehow things would just keep happening. And it has been like that throughout for me.
Wow. At one point, Bonney, you didn't mention, you said it in passing. At what point or at what age did you lose your mom? Because you mentioned that when your uncle passed on, you took the responsibility.
Yes.
So your mom wasn't alive at the time?
No, she was. She was, but she was up country. Now, what happens? Yes, what happens is my mom wanted us to live with her in the village. But to me, I felt like being in the village would not give us the kind of future
exposure
that I had seen in my mind and in my spirit. Actually, even up to now, I don't yet see myself in the places that I've seen myself. I know you know what I'm saying.
I know.
I've seen myself in certain spaces, but I've not yet experienced them in the physical.
Sure.
And that is one of the things that always push me. So when my mom wanted me to go back, and then she sends me to a primary teaching college so that I become a primary teacher. But
it makes sense to you.
Yes, and she felt I was being rebellious. I got my siblings away from her and brought them to the city. So, and once in a while she would send me food stuff from the village. Yes, she would send food stuff. She passed away when I was, it was actually even after my S6. Because when my uncle died, I was only in S4.
S4.
And that's when I began to get this, because I remember taking my cousins to Lango College with the support of my uncle, the one I said began to struggle with alcohol. They studied like for a year and things became tough. Then I took them to Bombo Army, and at that point is now when my uncle was not there. But my mom was there, but I never wanted to bother her. I had this spirit in me that I'm a man, I can handle all these things. My cousin Dan is a very strong person. He was, we all have weaknesses. Now his weakness was in being a hustler, but when it comes to in class, was super sharp. And that motivated me to make sure he achieved anything he needed in terms of academics. I took him to Bombo Army School, where I was paying 15,000 shillings per term. But still, maintaining him in school was war for me. I had to rent for him a house outside of the barracks. And then I would pay for only one plate of food per day. Imagine you're in school, you're not sure of breakfast, lunch, or supper, but you're sure of one plate
one
of
meal
food
at least
a day.
to survive.
That's what I made sure he had. And then every weekend, I would go there, I leave him with like a 5K. I buy pancakes, I come with pancakes and a 5K. I'm like, man, we shall make it.
We shall make it.
We shall
and
make
water.
It. Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
And I thank God. Yes. So my mom passed on, I think, when I was, I think I was 20, 21. Yes.
Wow. Man, so rest in peace.
Amen.
So Bonney, now when you're in Chireka that time, how were you hustling? Because you said you'd squeeze, as what we used to do, when things become tight on the toothpaste.
Yes.
What you do is you get a fork. Yes, you first roll it. If you didn't roll, you put the fork, then you squeeze it. You squeeze with the fork, or a pen, and then you keep pushing the toothpaste out until it comes out. So how did you survive? Was there like any job that was bringing a bit of money for food at the time?
There were several hustles.
Yes.
One, my uncle.
Yeah.
When he passed on, he left us with a clinic. But the clinic wasn't doing well. I remember, I always tell people this funny story. Sorry to all my patients. When I was in S4 back, I became a medical personnel. We had 3 nurses, but they were not performing well. So I made myself a nurse. We had a big book written in where there's no doctor. So you can get the prescriptions for every disease.
Yeah.
So we would get these clients who come in and someone is sick, but when they tell me a disease, and it sounds funny because I'm a young person, like I think I was 17, 16, around there, I would first go at the back. That was in Bukoto. That's where the clinic was. That, opposite St. Andrews, that road that goes to Sasi. The first building there, we had a clinic there. So I would go at the back and first fall on my bed and laugh at the patient. Why? And the expression, I'm a young person and this is a big sound in H's. And then somebody. So you go and I feel sorry laughing before and the is laughing at the person. Then I would first go and fall in the bed and laugh. When the laughter is gone, then I come back when I'm very serious.
And then you read.
Then I prescribe
You first read where there's no doctor. And then
the book was even at the back. I read it I don't want you to see me
reading.
You should be sure of me so that you come back.
But acting started way back.
Yes. So that was one of the ways we survived. And then, of course, it kept dying out slowly. Then I learned the craft of baking thanks to a gentleman called Senjala Edward. He's called Uncle Seidu. The whole of Chireka Business Center, that area, if you just go there and say Uncle Seidu, everyone will know him.
Wow.
He taught me how to bake, so that's one of the best ways through which I made sure these people had sustenance.
So when you learned how to bake, you were able to bake and sell your what were you baking? Cakes?
Yes, cakes.
Pastries?
Yes.
Cookies, things like that?
Mainly cakes. And I also worked at the pharmaceutical industry because my uncle was a pharmacist and he was he was a director in Rene Pharmaceutical Industries. So it was easy for us to get jobs there, but the pay was peanuts back then and couldn't help. And then I was a dancer in a dance group called Exposure. Once in a while we would get gigs. Yes, we had
and we survived.
Gigs. Yes, so we kept surviving here and there. Yes.
But the cake business, baking, was helping you out on supplementing the income.
Yes.
Paying fees for your brothers, cousins.
That was actually at one point. I used to be supplied by certain Indians, like a whole pickup of icing sugar every week. That's how big the bakery had become.
So the bakery had become so huge.
Yes, but then
pickup of icing sugar.
Yes, man. And I would supply shops in Nakasero market there throughout the week. Then on Saturday, I go with my book just ticking how many cakes I supplied this shop, how much I go to the next,
and they pay you
and get all the money. Then
so God opened the way for you.
Books, yes. But now,
but Ben, you don't look like you're a baker. Are you being for real?
I'm a very good baker. Very, very good. I got very many clients, schools, and you see, with cakes, you don't need to advertise if you're good.
They sell
someone will be at the function, they test like, where did you buy this from? And so it's what I quit now.
Are you still baking? Can I place my order?
It's been a while, but yes, you can place your order. It would be a special order though, because I've not been baking commercially. Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
Wow.
And then several ladies would come to me, elderly women, for baking lessons. Yes. I remember there's a lady in Bunga. When I told her she's a Nalongo, she slaughtered the whole goat for me. Yes. I don't know how she is or where she is right now.
Wow. Yeah. So now coming back into the art. So then when you're looking after your siblings and yourself, were you, because I know and I have heard us talk offline You sacrificed how many years? 17 years.
14.
14 years,
Yes.
you sacrificed your own schooling
Mm.
for 14 years so that you take your siblings, your cousins, your brothers to school until the final person has finished university, then you went back to school.
Yes.
Ah, man, boy.
Yes.
What an achievement. How did you get that heart to be able to? I mean, most people say, let me go myself as the elder, then I go quickly, finish, then I get a job, then maybe I can pay for them. But you chose to sacrifice your own gratification on moving ahead. And then for 14 years, you were down hustling. Different jobs, baking, doing this and that, so that you can take your brothers. I would like to hear that story a bit more.
Actually, someone once told me that face to face, like, man, that's a mistake you made. Because when I got into the acting and all this, first of all, how I gave away the baking business is I got in touch with Bobby. I met Bobby. The first feature film that I did professionally was starring Bobby Wine, Butcherman, myself, and a lady called Catherine. And so Bobby became a very tight friend of mine. And I became too excited being a young person, and I used to sing. So most of the time I would be fire-based. Actually, some aunt of mine recently told me, Bonnie, you know God will one day ask you. He gave you a talent and you're not utilizing it. You've forgotten all about baking, but that's a talent that God gave you.
Yeah, it is as well.
God has given you many talents. You don't have to bury some and pursue others. So when I met Bobby, that's how I began to slowly give up baking and go too much into music and acting and all that. So somehow the baking died. But then life challenged me so harshly that at one point I found myself back in my village.
Wow.
For 3 good years, I became a very poor peasant farmer. I was among the poorest of the poor in my village.
Wow.
To the point that a certain lady who is a witch doctor laughed and said, Bonnie, you're a disgrace to our clan.
Wow.
No one in our clan reaches S6. And above all, go up to Kampala, then they come back and they're like you. Because I would find myself picking slippers that people have thrown. Like when it's blue and red, and they are both right-sided, and it's what I'm wearing.
Wow, life.
And I would cut my own trousers to use as boxers.
Wow.
I was digging in some place because our land became too small. I was too hungry to dig and too hungry to make a difference. I'm this person, when I go into something, I give it my all. And my siblings were like my army. When I say this is what we are doing,
they will follow.
They'll follow, and we do. So we used to wake up early morning and be in the garden until midday. Then come have what we are going to eat and rest. By around 3-4, we are back in the garden till sunset. So we finished our land, and I began to hire land deep in villages. But we found ourselves drinking water from a pond.
Wow.
That the color of the water is like milk, but that is water because it's unclean.
That water.
You find dead houseflies on top, then you just have to do this. And some woman comes after cleaning the baby's poo, they dip their hand, but it's the water you're going to drink. I was sleeping in some huts for a gentleman called Ayeni in a place called Okule or Atora. The other hut, when you lie at night, you can see the moon through the grass.
The grass, yeah.
Then when you're shutting the door, you hold the door shutter like this and do this. My bro, Tommy, looked at me and he said, man, Lord, if anyone who knows you is to come here, they'll think there's a movie character you're preparing for. You just won't look like the real character. But that's what
your life was.
Yes.
Wow.
I remember Bush Baby met me in Gulu town one day. Then he looked at me like, you guy, you look like Lot. Are you Lot's brother? I'm like, this is Lot you're looking at. He's like, man, he couldn't believe, because life had planned me so much. But deep in my heart, I used to tell myself, this is not my end. This is not my end. And I would tell myself, I had learned about the Barinadi Film Festival and the Barinadi Talent Campus, where talent is nurtured. I used to tell myself, one day I'll be in Berlin. One day I'll be in Berlin. Yes,
Germany.
I have to be for the Barinadi.
Wow.
Even when I was at that deep,
at your lowest of low.
Yes, it's one of the things that
Man, Bonnie. But you never told me about this.
So
Life beat you that badly?
yeah, it's so bad, so bad.
Wow.
That I have a friend, the late Colin. He met me in Gulu town. I was wearing borrowed, Lugavire. Yes, I had borrowed Lugavire. That's how bad it was. Colin met me there like, man, Bonney, no, this can't be you. You're going to grow old. Do you know our age mates in the village look older than we do because of struggle? And now this is how you're positioning yourself. You'll soon be like them. Then he took me to his house and gave me a pair of sneakers, very beautiful sneakers, and gave me 50,000 shillings. The next day was my son's birthday. He's like, man, this is for the birthday of the boys. Yes. Because that's where life had put me. But when I was there, I used to tell myself, now when I was leaving the village, I told myself.
At that time, had you met God? Had you met Christ? Like personally?
Yes, I had. But one of the things I've struggled with in life is addiction. I used a lot of drugs. And you see, addiction is different from drug use. Addiction is different from alcohol use. What I'm saying here is there are people who will drink from Monday to Sunday and their lives will continue.
Yeah.
There are people who will smoke weed and their lives will work out very perfectly. Addiction is a disease that when you are struggling with, it means you can't control the substance, how much you can take, when to take it, and all that. So, personally, I think I struggled with addiction. Because I reached a point where that's the only thing that kept me also. Like, every time I feel like there's too much trouble, I'm like, let me do this and get high. Like, I used to have a basin of weed under my bed. Every time I wake up, the first thing I do is pull the basin, roll. After that, that's when I kneel and pray. I used to pray a lot. Actually, I remember I used to go to a total church, and I think the pastor knew this guy does weed. Because once in a while, he would walk off the pulpit, and whenever I would go to church, I used to go in shorts, army shorts, and a vest. And I had my dreads, and I would never sit in the chair, just stand at the back throughout the service. So the pastor would sometimes, this called Pastor Logo. He would come at the back, then he passed me, what's up, man? In the middle of the service, then he goes back. I think he's saying, I got you, man. I can see you.
I see.
Yes. So I knew God, and God was working in my life. Much as I was
something he was building.
Yes, much as I wasn't living the life that is expected of a godly Christian.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Hey. So how then do you leave the village? Those 3 years, how do you come back?
Now
you are still telling us about the Berlin festival.
Yes. Before I left for the village, I'd worked with almost every major media house in Uganda, in Kampala here. I'd worked with every big musician in Kampala. I used to do videos. So every person who makes videos somehow felt they needed me on their team. So I'd reached a point where every morning I knew my phone will ring and someone is going to call me on set to be part of set. And then I worked with Steve Jean Fennon. He's one of my best bosses I've worked with my whole life.
Wow.
Yes, he's a person who appreciates people and their service. He will give you more than you expect in terms of remuneration.
So he's a giver.
Yes, he gives you more than what you think you worked for. And Steve would support me. At one point, he asked me, Bonney, how old are you? I told him I'm 27. Then he said, at your age, I was thinking about quitting music to begin earning out of music and musicians in Uganda. Why don't you settle down with me and we make some good millions together? But my love for music, then when you say that, I feel like you're being an enemy. You want to take me off my course. So
what was the cause? The acting?
Music.
Ah, okay.
Yes. I remember I started as a dancer after S6. Then from dancing, we graduated into singing. And then it's through our first music video, actually, that Don Mugisha, who is now called Sadiq Mugisha, spotted me. He told the guys who had taken the footage to him to edit, I want this guy. And he told me, you guy, you have a cinematic face. Your kind of face is what I've been looking for. And he told me, I want to do my first feature film, and you're the very person I've been looking for. And I want you to be, you're going to appear among 3 of the biggest musicians in Kampala. And then he wanted to use Chameleon, Bebe, and Bob because they were all his friends. But back then, those guys used to have fights. So at the end of the day, he realized he can't work with them all at once. So he decided to replace the other 2 with Butcherman. And then Nubian Lee also acted in the film. And then myself and Kathy. So Don discovered me that way. And so by the time I left, Steve was my friend, my boss and my friend. So when I was in the village and life had hit me hard, one day I had an advert for a show Coco Finger was going to Lira. And how the mentions came through, I just knew it was being organized by Fenon. And it triggered my mind to the memory of Steve. So I called him, I'm like, yeah, Steve, you still have the gigs you used to give me? He told me, Bonnie, you are among my friends who really disappointed me in life. You are 3 people that really disappointed me. I won't mention the other 2, but there are 2 artists. One of them is in the US right now. One, I don't know where he is. But he told me he loved us as brothers and he would always advise us, but we thought we were wise. Things like now, kati wuyo oli mukyalo. Ndowooza okizudde kunze naawe ani eyali omugezi. Then he told me, but anyway, tonvumanga, komawo tukole. So that is how I came
Had you
back.
parted in a bad way?
No, I just...
That time when you parted from him?
No, I just walked away.
You just walked away.
Yes. So he called me.
You showed him the back?
Yes, I'm not interested.
Okay.
Yes. And by the way, I think I had a challenge also with, is it called esteem? Because several times Steve wanted to teach me certain things, and I would say, Steve, I can't do that. Then he would go like, no, stop saying you can't. I'll teach you to do it. I'll teach you whatever you want, I'll teach you.
Yeah.
And somehow I would recommend other people in my place. And yes. So
wow.
When I remembered him, I called him. He brought me back to Kampala. And I worked for a while. Then again, I began, because when I left the village, I told myself, I'm going back to Kampala, but within 5 years, I want to have a university degree. I want to have gone to Berlin.
Hold it there. That time when you're in the village, were you still paying for your, since you're digging?
Yes.
You're digging in other people's farms.
Yes.
That's how you're raising money to take your kids to your siblings to
Yes.
university.
But
and
Dan by then I was already done with his university. He was teaching at Seta High. Then Balaam, his mom took him away from me. It's like she can't watch. She was like, she can't watch her son suffer when she's still alive. And then I moved with my siblings. My cousin Dorcas, may her soul rest in peace. She had also moved away from me. Yeah, and so I moved with my siblings. And Tommy by then was done with S6, but he wasn't continuing. He didn't go further than that at the time. So the rest, yes, I was making sure they go to school. Nancy, Emmanuel, and Innocent.
Okay.
Yes.
So when you're still in the village, you're still supporting them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you didn't lose the mission, even when you're struggling yourself,
Yes.
suffering?
Yes.
Man,
Actually, that
Bonney,
brings me back
you're a hero, man.
to this question you had asked, why some people always feel like they should go first and then come for the rest. When I was in the village, after some time, people used to look at me like this confused fellow, because I had very dirty dreads and I would wear military fatigue most of the time. I had 3 dogs I would move with when I'm going to the garden. Like, so my life, people didn't understand it. But you know how a Rasta is, like a peace and love person, and you want nature, you love nature. So to me, that's what I was. So people thought of me as a very confused fellow. But every time someone would interact with me, they would go, all this wisdom comes out of you. So as time went on, I began to make friendships with the head teachers, with people working in NGOs. And so at one point, a certain gentleman who used to work with World Vision, when he interacted with me the first time, like, man, you're a wasted resource. What are you doing in the village?
Yeah.
I can't imagine all this that you're saying comes out of your mouth. Then he told me, but I believe there's a fire burning on the inside of you based on what we've discussed. Please don't allow that fire to burn out. And kindly don't reduce yourself to the level of drinking local water. Because if you do, that's how you're going to go. Yes. So somehow I overcame that stage and I prayed. I remember 2023 coming to 2024. I knelt down as people were crossing over, because I had now begun to do a certain business where I would go to people's gardens. I would go to people and tell them, I can sell your crops in Kampala, especially cassava and potatoes. So I would go and get stuff from people's gardens, bring to Karere, sell, then go back, give them their money, take off my cart. So, but I remember 31st December 2013 coming 2014.
Wow.
I had failed to get transportation for potatoes. So I went back to my mother's house. My mother built a house at a trading center called Olot Bonney Olem. So I went, as people were out celebrating, very happy. I was lying on a mat somewhere in an empty room without anything to cover myself with. And I'm like, God, I want this to be the last year that I suffer like this. I don't want to ever see this kind of life again. Why? How can I be lying here like this? The whole world is out there celebrating the year that has just passed. This can't be my life. I can't be reduced to this. So I prayed, and I think that was the last trip of supplies that I brought to Kampala. Then I told myself, I'm going back to Kampala. Whether it means slashing a certain man's compound or washing his cars, I'm willing to do that as long as it brings money to me and keeps me in Kampala. I have to work my way out.
All these struggles, what was going through your mind, Bonney? What was really going through your mind? Because, yeah.
Well, for me, I always give God glory for everything in my life. And deep in my heart, like I said, I've been places that I've not yet been to physically. God has showed me lots of things about my life, about where I'm heading, about the kind of family I am to have. So I always tell myself I'm more than convinced of who I am and of my future. And that's one of the fueling factors of my progress in life.
Wow.
I keep telling myself I know where I'm going. I know. Much as what the physical manifestation around me is showing me is different. I always tell myself those things that are seen are temporal, but the things that are not seen are eternal. So God's love for me, His purpose for me, His plans for me are eternal, and nothing can come between the fulfillment of those things and His purpose.
I'm glad you really met Him, because you see, people going through such a life end up being bitter, and being angry at God, and say God doesn't exist because of the suffering they're going through.
Sure.
I mean, losing your dad, then again your uncle who had taken over you to raise you passes on, then at one point later your mom passes on. You're raising your family, you're hustling, then you reach a place you're beaten, life squeezes you. Hey! Anyway, as the story unfolds, so as you are declaring to yourself on that new year, 2013, was it crossover of 2014?
Yes, 2013 to 2014.
2014 new year, you declare and say, I'm coming back to Kampala, I will slash houses, I will slash compounds, I'll wash cars, but I must go back to the city. So how does that unfold? Do you wake up the next morning and come back to Kampala? Where do you start from?
I remember I had these supplies. I came with these supplies and then sold, then went back to the village. First of all, I'd met a certain musician in Gulu called Art Always Follows Me. I organized a show in the village and I hired equipment from one of the biggest musicians in the north. It's called Tuangweno. So Tuangweno discovered that I have a lot in me, yet I'm in Minakulu in a village. So he called me, like, why can't we work together? So he had an event. I went and covered, and he paid me money. But after him paying me, I just used that money. I didn't even go back to my family, because by then I had the mother of my son in my life. I just told her, I've gone to Kampala, but I'll be back for you guys. You know. Then I just boarded. I came on a pickup. I boarded a pickup from Gulu up to Kampala, and because I'd made this show its advert became too big in that area, in that region, that as I was jazzing with the guy I was seated with on the pickup, and on that truck, and I told him my name, the guy was like, he couldn't believe, because the other voice he hears on TV is a projection of someone who is doing so well. He couldn't believe it's the same person he's seated with on that track. Yes, and yes, talent is a blessing. And that's why you see when artists join politics and they go in these public spaces, they receive, it has power of attraction and
influence.
Yes, and respect. Because even then, I remember I would be in the village rolling a bicycle and moving deep in the village, and when people saw me and recognized me, the kind of discipline they would give would humble me. I remember a woman, I asked for water at a certain woman's home, and she was shaking. She gave me water while the cup, I received half of the cup. But why? Because she has met me physically. I'm in her compound. She was like, she knelt down and gave me this cup. I'm like, wow. I felt too humbled by the effect I had on such a person.
Wow.
Yes. So when I was in the village, basically, my plan was come back, go to university, make sure I go to Berlin, because I'd known there are several other platforms for actors, but that's the one I knew.
You wanted.
And I thank God that, yes, after I think 2 years, I was in Berlin.
Wow.
Came back, I joined Makerere.
Hold on there. There are some details you missed a bit. That time when you did that movie with Don Mogisha at the time, you said it's now called Sadiq.
Yes.
Yes. What was the title of that movie?
It's called Divisions.
Divisions. Okay.
And it won several awards actually around the world. And it's the reason, imagine a movie that was officially premiered in Berlin and in the same festival in 2008. It's the one that influenced my travel in 2016, eight years later.
After.
It got several screenings around the world, won several awards. I did another film still with Bobby and Cleopatra and Butcherman. It's called Yogera. It also made its rounds. So I kept doing several projects. Yes, and after some time, when I returned, when I worked with Fenon 2014, around October, I got a job with MTN Uganda because I wanted to go to school. And at Fenon, they were paying me so well, but then work was too much. I could not have been able to go to school. So I managed to...
So you would say Steve Jean gave you another chance?
Yes, he did.
So Rizan, who gave you a chance from the time you were in the village?
Yes.
And you came back as a brother, I said, don't worry. And he gave you another chance.
Yes. And even when I got a job with MTN, he told me, you know what? You're going, but in case things don't work out for you, the door is always open for you. You can always come back here. This is like your second home. Then he told me, I have many friends in the corporate world, but you should not allow that to take away your thinking. The corporate world is for earning salary. But if you want to build yourself, you need to hustle beyond the salary. I have friends in there, but they are doing certain other things. So make sure when you go there, you're not taken into the thinking of the reasoning of the corporate world. Think about how best you can build yourself beyond the salary. And anytime you feel things are not right where you've gone, the door is always open here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey. So how then do you get into Germany? How does Berlin happen? Well, so that time you're still telling us before Berlin, you've got the job in MTN. So what type of job was it?
Customer service. I was a customer care advisor.
Okay.
I was there from 2014 October to November 2021. 7 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you used to do the night shift?
Yeah, mainly night shift. I did night shift.
And in the day you go to school?
Yes.
Okay.
And then
to university?
Yes, I had reopened the bakery in Mutungo. So I had 4 engagements. I had campus, I had MTN customer service, I had the bakery, and then I volunteered as a life skills coach in a rehabilitation center.
Wow.
So there...
So while juggling all those things?
I used to move with a bag
Yes.
that had everything, my lotion, my spray, my toothbrush, toothpaste, towel, and changing clothes. I was very rare at home.
Hold it rare. As we come back, you'll tell us more about that.